Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely.
Awesome. Today we're tackling something I think a lot of us, especially us ladies, can relate to. Breaking free from those one-sided relationships.
Those tricky dynamics.
Yeah, exactly. We're diving into the article, Breaking Free from One-Sided Relationships, Empowering Yourself for a Fulfilling Life, from the blog, Live a Supercharged Life.
That sounds really interesting.
It is, and our mission here is to give you the tools to really pinpoint these relationships, understand how to handle them, and ultimately break free. So you can live that more fulfilling life you deserve.
I love that. Empowerment all the way. And it's so important to recognize that these dynamics can pop up anywhere.
Oh, absolutely. Friendships, family, work, not just romantic relationships.
Exactly. And it can be especially impactful for women and girls, you know? We're often raised to be givers, to nurture, sometimes even to our detriment.
It's like we're programmed to put everyone else first.
You hit the nail on the head.
But you know what? Recognizing those patterns is that crucial first step to breaking free. The article kicks off by talking about how to spot these one-sided relationships. Lays out 3 big warning signs to watch out for. What's that first one?
So the first one is lack of reciprocity. It's that feeling you get when you're always the one initiating, right? You're always texting first, planning things, offering support, but it's rarely reciprocated.
Ugh, been there. Exhausting, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It's a major red flag.
Totally. And sign number 2.
This one is emotional drain. It's like you're pouring your energy into the relationship, but you're not getting anything back.
Right, you feel emotionally exhausted, constantly seeking validation, maybe walking on eggshells.
You got it.
I mean, it's that constant giving without replenishing your own cup. Not good. Okay, so we've got lack of reciprocity, emotional drain. What's that third warning sign?
This one's about power dynamics, unequal power dynamics, to be precise. One person consistently holds more control in the relationship.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, you feel unheard, dismissed, like your opinions and needs are minimized.
Definitely a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for women and girls especially, we're often socialized to be accommodating, not to make waves.
Absolutely. And that makes it even tougher to stand up for ourselves in these situations.
Absolutely. And it can be so damaging over time.
Right. Because the longer it goes on, the more these patterns can chip away at your self-esteem. You start questioning your worth. You feel less confident about expressing your needs.
Ugh, it's a slippery slope.
It is.
So how do we turn things around? Like, what can we actually do to break free?
Well, the article dives into the importance of setting boundaries.
Oh, boundaries, yes. I love that.
Right. And this is where things get really interesting. It's not just saying no. It's about understanding what you're willing to tolerate and communicating those limits clearly and respectfully.
You're so right, knowing your worth and what you deserve.
Yeah.
But how do we actually put that into practice? Like, can you give us a real-life example?
Okay, picture this. You have a friend who always dumps their problems on you. They're constantly venting, but they never ask how you're doing.
Oof, I know that friend.
Right. So you can set a boundary by saying something like, hey, I really care about you and I want to be there for you. But sometimes I feel like our conversations are one-sided. Could we maybe make sure we both get a chance to share?
Okay, see, that's assertive, but it's also focused on finding a balance in the relationship, which I think is key.
Absolutely. It's not about shutting the person down.
Totally.
And setting boundaries, it also means prioritizing self-care, doing things that bring you joy, helping you recharge.
Oh, healthcare is essential.
It is. It's like putting on your oxygen mask first before helping others. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Love that analogy. Okay, so we've got boundaries down. What about open and honest communication? The article mentions that too, right?
Yeah, it's crucial. It's about creating a space where you feel safe to express your feelings and needs, without fear of judgment.
I love that. So important. So how do we do that?
I statements can be really helpful. Instead of saying, you never listen, try saying, I feel unheard when I don't get a chance to share my thoughts.
Oh, it's such a subtle but powerful shift.
Right. It puts the focus on your experience without blaming the other person.
Exactly. Owning your feelings, communicating them in a way that invites understanding.
Yeah, and even if you don't agree with the other person's perspective, practicing empathy can go a long way.
Empathy, big one. Try and understand where they're coming from, even if you don't condone their actions. But, what happens when, even with clear boundaries, open communication, a relationship still isn't meeting your needs?
That's when you may need to reevaluate that relationship.
Ooh, tough, but necessary.
It is. It's a tough step, but it's crucial. You got to ask yourself, are my needs being met? Is there a balance of give and take?
Reevaluating can be so hard, especially for us women. We feel that pressure to keep the peace, even if it costs us our own happiness.
You're telling me it seems easier to just go with the flow than rock the boat.
Right.
But you've got to remember you deserve to be in relationships that are fulfilling, reciprocal.
Reach.
And sometimes reevaluating means realizing a particular relationship no longer serves you. And that's okay. It's growth. It's self-awareness.
That's a great way to frame it. It's not about blame. It's about prioritizing your own well-being.
Exactly.
So we've talked about recognizing the signs, setting boundaries, communicating openly, even reevaluating those connections that aren't serving us. What's next? Where do we go from here? How do we start building those healthier relationships?
Oh, that is the million-dollar question. And I think it's the perfect spot for us to, take a little pause. When we come back, we'll dive into building those positive connections. It all starts with surrounding ourselves with people who genuinely offer mutual support and respect.
And, speaking of respect, the article really emphasized that, especially for women. It's all about preserving individuality,
Yeah.
not losing yourself in a relationship.
Oh, that's so crucial. When both people feel genuinely respected for who they are, it builds trust, security. It lets each person be themselves, make their own choices without feeling pressured.
Right. Like you could be independent, strong, but also in a loving and supportive relationship. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Exactly. And when both people are putting in that effort to understand and meet each other's needs, that's when you really see that supportive environment flourish.
It's like tending a garden together.
Right.
Both people have got to nurture it for it to thrive.
Oh, I love that analogy. And speaking of gardens, we also need to remember to tend to our existing connections. Those friendships, family relationships, mentorships, the ones that bring us joy.
Oh, that's so important. It's easy to get caught up in new relationships or trying to fix the difficult ones, and we forget to nurture those strong connections we already have.
It happens to the best of us. But even those small gestures, they can make a huge difference. Scheduling those coffee dates, engaging in shared interests, or even just expressing appreciation for the people who matter to us.
It's about being present, showing up for the people in our lives, just like we'd want them to show up for us.
Exactly. And sometimes building new connections can be so empowering too, especially for women who might be coming out of a one-sided relationship or feeling a bit isolated.
Right. Expanding your circle, finding those people who share your values, lift you up.
It's like venturing out into a new world and discovering all these amazing people ready to connect.
I love that. Any tips on how to put ourselves out there?
Definitely. Start by thinking about what you truly value in a relationship. What qualities are important to you? What are your non-negotiables?
So being intentional.
Yeah.
Knowing what you want instead of just hoping for the best.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to step out of that comfort zone. Join a book club, take a cooking class, volunteer for a cause you care about, anything that aligns with your interests and, puts you in contact with like-minded people.
I love that advice. You never know who you'll meet. Speaking of forming connections, I want to circle back to something in the article that really caught my eye. The relationship rewrite method. It sounds fascinating.
Oh, yeah. This method is all about tapping into the psychology of connection, using it to make your existing relationships stronger.
Like you're literally rewriting the script of a relationship that's veered off course. What kind of tools are we talking about?
Well, one technique the method uses is called foot in the door. It's this idea that if you can get someone to agree to a small request, they're more likely to agree to a bigger one later on.
Oh, interesting. Like building trust, goodwill, through those little acts of kindness or cooperation.
Exactly. Let's say you want your partner to, I don't know, help more around the house. Instead of launching into a whole big conversation about chores, you could just ask them to take out the trash.
Makes sense. Start small.
Right.
Better.
Once they've done that, they might be more open to helping with other stuff.
It's like creating momentum, right?
Yeah.
Breaking down resistance through small positive actions.
Exactly. The method also talks about the power of embedded compliments. Instead of just saying, you look nice, you might say, I love how your new haircut brings out the color of your eyes.
Oh, it's like you're taking it a step further, being specific and genuine.
Right. Going beyond those surface level compliments, making someone feel truly seen, appreciated.
I love that. And while the method focuses on romantic relationships, those principles can apply to any type of connection, right?
Absolutely. It's about understanding what makes people feel valued and finding ways to work those elements into how we interact.
So true. So whether it's improving communication with a friend, reconnecting with family, deepening a romantic relationship, these tools can help create more fulfilling dynamics.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember building healthy relationships. It's a journey. It takes effort, patience, and a willingness to learn to grow.
It's not about perfection or getting instant results, but those small, consistent efforts towards the connections we want.
You got it. And speaking of effort, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
We've explored so much. Recognizing those red flags, setting boundaries, communication, and even those psychology-based methods for better connections.
It's been a great discussion. And honestly, the article, Breaking Free from One-Sided Relationships, Empowering Yourself for a Fulfilling Life, has even more amazing stuff that we didn't have time to unpack.
Right. It's a fantastic resource for anyone wanting to really dig into this, start creating healthier, more balanced relationships. You can find it on liveasuperchargedlife.com.
Definitely check it out. But before we wrap things up completely, I'm curious, what resonated most with you from all of this? What's that one big takeaway?
For me, it's the focus on recognizing your own worth and not settling for less than you deserve. It's about empowering yourself to build connections that are truly reciprocal and fulfilling.
I love that. Such a powerful message, especially for women and girls who, let's be honest, are often taught to put others' needs first.
It's about taking back our power and creating a world where healthy relationships are the standard, not the exception.
Absolutely. And on that note, let's leave our listeners with one final thought. What's one small step you can take right now to start creating those healthier relationships?
Is it setting a boundary? Expressing appreciation to someone you love? Or maybe just taking some time for that much-needed self-care? We'd love to hear from you.
And until next time, keep striving for those amazing, fulfilling connections. You deserve it.
It's really empowering to think about taking those small steps, those tiny little shifts that can lead to huge changes in our relationships. And it reminds me, we were just talking about how these dynamics can show up in all kinds of relationships, not just the romantic ones, right?
Exactly. We tend to think about one-sidedness in romantic relationships, but it's everywhere. Friendships, family, even at work.
It really makes you realize how important it is to be aware of these patterns across the board.
It is.
Think about like that friend who always bails on plans last minute or only reaches out when they need something.
Classic example. Or that family member who expects you to be their, emotional dumping ground, but never offers support in return. Those are tough.
Totally. And those situations can leave you feeling so drained, resentful.
Absolutely.
And then in the workplace, it might look like, I don't know, a colleague taking credit for your ideas or a boss who's constantly micromanaging but doesn't give you any real autonomy.
It's amazing how those patterns just repeat themselves in different areas of life. But the good news is the same tools we've been talking about can be applied to all those situations.
So true. So how would we approach like some of these real-life situations using those tools? Let's start with the friend who's always flaking.
Okay, so instead of just, accepting it or getting frustrated, you could set a boundary. You might say, hey, I really value our friendship, but it hurts when our plans keep falling through. Maybe we could try scheduling things further out or picking activities we're both really excited about.
That's a great way to bring it up.
Yeah.
You're acknowledging the issue, but you're not being accusatory, and you're offering solutions.
Exactly. And with the family member who's constantly unloading, you might need to set some firmer boundaries there. You could say something like, I love you and I want to support you, but I'm not always able to handle these heavy conversations. Maybe we could talk about lighter things for now, or you could reach out to a therapist for more specialized support.
That's a good point. Prioritizing your own emotional well-being while still offering support, but in a way that's, manageable.
Exactly. And with a controlling boss, it might require a different approach. You could try saying, I appreciate your guidance, but I thrive when I have ownership over my projects. Could we maybe find ways for me to take on more responsibility and make some decisions on my own?
I like that. Advocating for your need for autonomy while also showing you're willing to learn and contribute.
Right.
These examples really show how these tools can be adapted for so many different situations.
They really can. And it's important to remember it's a process, right? It takes time to shift those dynamics, establish new patterns.
And it's okay to ask for support along the way,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a friend, a family member, a therapist, having someone to talk to, process those challenges. It can make such a difference.
It really can. We don't have to go through it alone. And speaking of resources, I want to mention again the article we've been discussing. Breaking Free from One-Sided Relationships, Empowering Yourself for a Fulfilling Life. It has so many more great insights and tips, things we didn't even get to today.
Definitely. It's an amazing resource for anyone who wants to dive deeper into this and really start creating healthier, more balanced relationships. Remember, you can find it on liveasuperchargedlife.com.
And to our listeners, remember this. You are worthy of love, respect, and fulfilling relationships. Don't settle for anything less.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So as we wrap up this deep dive, think about this. What's one small step you can take today to start building those incredible connections?
What's that one thing you can do? We'll see you next time.